at some things. But
Okay,
I need to.
we're recording now. Welcome everyone. Today is June 24th, 2020. I'm here with Tom Ryan and Barbara Engelhardt, his wife. I'm Kevin, Tom's son. These are some of Tom's memories, and we're going to try something new today. I'm going to pick out a word, kind of pretty much at random. And I think let's try a season. Fall. Okay, spring, summer, winter, fall. Okay, so you have fall, and that season. What kind of memories does that bring up for you?
Well, the year in Colorado when the aspen turn in the fall to a golden color is just overwhelming because you look up the mountainside and the whole mountainside is golden color. And as you drive through the mountains, it just is a very warm, wonderful sight. But I think winter time would be a better one. We went into the mountains and cut down our own Christmas tree. The Forest Service set aside areas that needed to be trimmed and pruned. And so they would allow people to legally go up into this particular place and cut a Christmas tree. And the whole family went up there. And it was like they did in the old days. People actually did cut their own Christmas tree. But it was the kids were all involved. And we picked the tree, and we had to argue which was the best tree. We can only have one. And we brought it home. Now, of course, it was not grown in a nursery, so it was misshapen, but it was our tree that we cut down and picked out in the forest. And all four of you kids and Marilyn were all along and in the process.
That's the
sort of thing I mean.
This was in Boulder?
That was in Boulder. Yeah.
Okay.
When you left Boulder, it was close to fall, I think, because you'd been there about a year, and you went up to Brainerd Lake.
Yeah, that's right.
Tell about that.
I had a broken leg. That's a whole nother story.
Right.
But we all went up to Brainerd Lake, which is a federal site in the mountains. There's many sites like it, but nothing is quite like Brainerd Lake. And I remember us being very sad because we had to say goodbye to Colorado. And we went up and made a breakfast there and made pancakes. And then we got in the car and we drove back to Elgin. And we had such a wonderful time. We didn't want to leave. And you kids didn't want to leave Elgin. When I said, we're going to go to Boulder, Colorado, you didn't like that idea very much. But after a year in Boulder, you didn't want to leave Boulder and go back to Elgin. I didn't either. But I had to because I would lose my pension if I went to Boulder. And I'd get half a pension. And I was already halfway through my career. So it just didn't make sense financially. We hadn't had much chance to save money because we went all these trips and everything. And there's the broken leg. Hey, that's great. Yes. And so then we were packing to go back to Elgin, and I sat in a chair because this foot was still throbbing and so on. And I couldn't really help with the packing. And I was ordering you four kids around. I'd say, go get this and go get that and put it in the trailer. We couldn't take very much in the trailer, so we'd be careful what got included and what got left behind. Now, we rented a house where they left all the furniture and everything. But here's me when I just broke my leg, and that picture right there. And the kids went all the way back home on foot and told Marilyn that I was there with looked like a broken leg. And she drove out with the car and drove up, and I got on into the car, and we went to the hospital and had an x-ray. Sure enough, I had a broken leg. So a broken ankle, really. There's Brainerd Lake with me with the broken leg on the last day that we were in Colorado, and before we went back. We had the trailer so overloaded that one of the tires blew out on the way home, and we had to put the spare on. Trailer wasn't designed to be a moving trailer. It was a camping trailer to sleep in, and everything was built light so it wouldn't drag on the car and would steer well. And so that was really a test of that trailer, that the whole thing didn't fall apart, but it held together except for the tire. And we got back to Elgin, and with the minimum of stuff in that trailer of all six of us, had to have our clothes and everything that was personal
Okay.
stored back there, because the car was full of people. We didn't have any room in the trailer, the car that we had. That's the sort of thing you're talking about, huh?
Well,
we could do
actually,
that.
no, well, fall sounds good, but other years, not Boulder, but maybe, I don't know, in Elgin or in
Growing up,
Yeah,
growing up, yeah, fall.
new school.
yeah. I remember my father was so impressed. He came out, and that I would take care of you kids, and then I was building a wall in the basement so that we could have a bedroom down there because Grandma was going to come and live with us. And so we turned half the basement into a bedroom where Marilyn and I would sleep, and it needed a wall. And I wasn't any experienced carpenter at all, but I had put up some 2x4s and we'd saw them. And then you kids would gave you a hammer and you nailed some of the nails in. You were builders too. It kept you busy and out of trouble and entertained. And then we put a string from the ceiling down to the floor and tied a nail in the end of the string. And that was our level, to make sure the wall was not cockeyed and was straight up and down, and that it would hang straight just by gravity. And then we would put the boards next to that string. And then when we nailed it all together, we'd say, is that string still inside the wall with the nail on it? I guess it must be. So we knew that forever and ever, no matter who owned that house, there would be a string with a nail on it. They'd say, I wonder why they put a string with a nail on it inside the wall of this temporary wall. It wasn't a temporary wall, it was permanent.
Okay.
And we put a door on and made the door hang, and the door hung right. And for somebody who had never done any carpentry work, I was proud of that project. And my dad was amazed at how I included you kids in the process. So that was a way to keep you busy. That's what you're talking about?
Any other, let's see, fall normally, let's see, with turning colors. You mentioned that in Boulder, but any other places where trees turning colors bring to mind?
No, I thinking of Christmas time, but they still do that. I mean,
That's
all
winter. That's
color at Christmas.
that's another episode.
Well,
Yeah.
we did go to Nova Scotia not too many years ago. We wanted to see the fall colors. We got there a little too early, but we had a wonderful time on that trip. It was a cruise. We started out in New York. We flew to New York, and my daughter, Catherine, and Bobby, her partner, lived there, and they kept us overnight. And we went to an art show that evening, and the next day they drove us to the pier, to this cruise ship that was going to take us all the way up to Halifax, and then Portland, Maine, and where else did we go? We just had a wonderful time. We looked for fall colors everywhere, and we were too early. It was still green, but it was a wonderful trip.
Lots of seafood. Yeah, and that was, I think, my last trip. And then we decided that was enough of traveling, far foreign travel. And we just decided today to spend at least one day a week in a park here in Loveland. We have wonderful, beautiful parks. And we went to Benson Park yesterday, and we ate our lunch on the lawn of Amy Morgan, our pastor. It lives right across the street from the park. And she had produced a booklet of meditations that we could have as we walked through the park. And during this pandemic time, when you're not supposed to get together, she's very creative in creating things we can do and still get out and walk, and there's plenty of room so we don't get bumping into people. And we enjoyed the day walking them in the sculptures. It's a long story about how the sculptures, it's full of probably 1,000 beautifully made sculptures, real artworks that are in that park. I think if somebody wanted to see sculptures and examples, the Benson Park in Loveland, Colorado would be the best place to go in the whole world. And we had got to do that, and we didn't have to drive far, and we didn't have to expose ourselves to the pandemic, and we had our lunch on her lawn, and that was a really nice day. We're gonna once a day for the next weeks, we're gonna pick a different park, and we have some fantastic parks here. Lots of money have been spent on them. When we were concerned about affordable housing and campaigning for it, we sat down with the mayor, city manager, and we told him that we needed to have lower priced houses for poorer people because the houses were too expensive in Loveland. And he said, why don't they just go over to Johnstown? Johnstown is about 3-4 miles away, and it has nothing, no library, no lousy schools, and all they have is new homes, and they're cheap. And he says, there's affordable housing, they can live over there. But if you want a quality town, it's going to cost you money. And of course, those houses like the pastor's house, I'm sure is worth more than an ordinary house just because it's across from that beautiful park. And so that's what we're going to do every week. And to get out of this house, we're getting the house, we need to walk too. And I need to get my legs in shape. We walked down to the garden, and I did with Barbara, and then we went to see if the daylilies had bloomed. They haven't yet, but we check them every day. And then I went up to the mailbox and got our mail. So I've had my exercise for the day, but I need to do that every day, or I'm not going to be able to walk through a park once a week. My legs will give out.
Well,
Okay.
talking about parks, how about Beast and Smith, the mountain park that you says
I always said
heaven.
we'd go up there, and I'd say, I don't know if there's a heaven or a hell, but if there's a heaven, I hope it's like Smith Weissten's Park, which is a beautiful park, just maybe 10 miles. It belongs to the city of Loveland. It used to be a power plant where they take water and to turn a generator to make electricity. And the first electricity that Loveland got was power produced. And that Smith and Weissten's were the two engineers that built that. And they built a park around the power plant. The power plant is now out of existence, but the park is still there. But two big floods went through there and tore the thing to pieces. And they spent $5 million rebuilding a park, but nothing like the old one. But it's a whole different concept, which it'll be more flood friendly if we have a future flood. So, yeah, that's the sort of place we're going to go and walk around. We did that at Smith Weissten's to see the new park, $15 million park, and we are going to do it at Mahaffey Park and so on. So that
Sounds good. Yeah, well, you'll have to recount each of those visits as they happen for some new history. All right,
you got to
sounds
go
good.
to work.
Yeah.
You got to go to work.
Yep.